Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. The Democrats are fighting with each other. Joe Manchin is engaging in face-offs, if you will, with the one and only Bernie Sanders. Why can we not simply get along? Well, folks, like you, I'm not naive enough to believe that we'll all have a kumbaya moment and we'll all come together one fine day. The truth is, though, that if we can all act rationally and logically, we can make our way out of this mess, out of this economic mess that we're in, out of this horrible pandemic, and we can get back to life as we know it. In fact, Andrew Yang has started a new party. It's called the Forward Party, and he says, I quote, if millions of us can come together, we'll all feel much, much better about the future. Before I jump into some of the shenanigans amongst the Democrats, let's take a look at Andrew Yang talking about his new Forward Party. Let's roll the tape and watch.
You know it's a nasty system when if everyone acts rationally, we're all going to lose at an epic scale. So when you ask, why is now the time for a third-party movement to succeed? It's because we have record high, literally civil war levels of polarization, and we need a solution. And if millions of us can come together and provide this solution, then we'll all feel much, much better about the future of our country.
Now, let's shift gears to the one and only Joe Manchin, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia. Now, Joe Manchin has indicated that he is supportive of President Biden's plan, but he doesn't want to spend too much money. Now, we can all agree that tax reform to make sure the wealthiest pay their fair share is important. We can all agree that there needs to be more support for seniors as well as some of the poorest amongst us, especially families with children who need help. And we can all agree that we need to lower the price of prescription drugs. I can tell you that the prices of prescription drugs in our country are an absolute ripoff. I'm a licensed physical therapist, and I can tell you that our country, the United States of America, is the only country in the world with thousands and thousands of insurance companies. Other developed countries, let's take the United Kingdom, for example, have just 2, at most 3 major payers, major insurance companies. Our healthcare system is very complex. Now, let's take a look at what Senator Joe Manchin seems to think about all this. Let's roll the tape and hear what he is in agreement for and what he doesn't want to do. Let's roll the tape and watch.
I think it's very important we understand that we need to do tax reform to make sure the wealthiest, they got the best advantages, the biggest advantages from the 2017 tax cuts, pay their fair share. I think the corporations that enjoy this great country and the comfort and the protection of this great country pay their fair share. I think also we have to make sure that we're committed to children at the beginning of life, that we can help them, and also our seniors at the end of life, that we can give them the dignity and the quality of life of living in your home if you desire to do that. These are all things we can set priorities. This is not a heavy lift. I think also lowering the price of drugs. It makes no sense at all that we don't go out and negotiate. The VA does a tremendous job. Medicaid does it. Why doesn't Medicare? These are things we all can agree on.
In the meantime, Cindy McCain, who, by the way, is President Biden's pick for ambassador to the UN's food program, said that Senator Kristen Sinema, who's a Democrat from Arizona, and Joe Manchin, who we've talked about, are following their hearts for the right reasons. Let's roll the tape and hear what the Republican Cindy McCain had to say.
But I think Kirsten's following her heart. I also think that Senator Manchin is following his. They're doing it for the right reasons, and that's what we can ask for. We may not agree with them, but as long as they're talking to each other on both sides of the aisle, then we're better off for that.
Well, it's kind of interesting.
And in response, the co-host from The View, Sunny Hostin, said 66% of Arizona likely voters also support this bill. So when you say Senator Sinema is following her heart, shouldn't she be following her constituents? Wow. Let's roll the tape and watch.
66% of Arizona likely voters also support this bill. So when you say Senator Sinema is following her heart, shouldn't she be following her constituents?
Well, that too, yes, of course.
Well, one thing
And folks, speaking of following their constituents, President Biden calls Republican senators, I quote, not only hypocritical, but dangerous and a bit disgraceful on the debt limit. President Biden said this: my Republican friends need to stop playing Russian roulette with the U.S. economy. Just get out of the way. Let's roll the tape and watch.
My friends, and there are many of my friends, the Senate Republicans' position I find to be not only hypocritical, but dangerous and a bit disgraceful, especially as we're crawling our way out of a pandemic that cost America $7 100,000 lives thus far, and we're still battling it. Our markets are rattled. America's savings are on the line. The American people, your savings, your pocketbook are directly impacted by this stunt. It doesn't have to be this way. My Republican friends need to stop playing Russian roulette with the U.S. economy. If they don't want to do the job, just get out of the way.
And if you thought that the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell was going to take that lying down, no way. In fact, he said this, I quote, "Democrats want to turn their failure into everybody else's crisis, using manufactured drama to bully their own members, indulging petty politics instead of governing." Wow. This is pretty ironic from the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on the floor of the United States Senate. Let's watch.
They wanted to turn their failure into everybody else's crisis, playing risky games with our economy, using manufactured drama to bully their own members, indulging petty politics instead of governing. Their entire failed approach to governing in a nutshell, on full display for the country to see.
And folks, the White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was specifically asked why President Biden has not yet called Mitch McConnell. I don't think there's any love lost between President Biden and Mitch McConnell at the moment, although they've known each other for more than 40 years in the United States Senate. And Jen Psaki did not hold anything back, and she simply said, "What's the conversation about?" Let's roll the tape and hear from the one and only Jen Psaki.
Why wouldn't the president, given that relationship he has with Mitch McConnell, just call Mitch McConnell and have this conversation with him? Why do this through public
What's the
events?
conversation about?
I don't know. They have the relationship. He's the one who said he could bring the two sides together. So wouldn't there be some value in having that conversation?
We know what the risk-free option is here. We know what the clear path forward is here, and I think the president has made no secret about his belief on that.
And speaking of the one and only, it's very clear that the independent from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, is not happy with Joe Manchin. He says this, I quote, "Does Senator Manchin not believe what the scientists are telling us?" He's referring to the importance of funds to fight climate change, which is actually being held up due to opposition from Senator Joe Manchin. Let's watch.
And perhaps most importantly, does Senator Manchin not believe what the scientists are telling us? That we face an existential threat regarding climate change, and that it is absolutely imperative that we move boldly to cut carbon emissions. Scientists have told us we're on a red alert.
And here's another comment from the one and only Bernie Sanders. He says his concern with Mr. Manchin is that one or two people think that they should be able to stop what 48 members of the Democratic caucus want, what the American people want. He's referring to Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema essentially stalling the entire Biden economic agenda. Let's roll the tape and watch.
So my concern with Mr. Manchin is not so much what his views are. I disagree with him. But it is that it is wrong. It is really not playing fair that one or two people think that they should be able to stop what 48 members of the Democratic caucus want, what the American people want, what the President of the United States wants. That would be my position.
Here's another quote from Bernie Sanders. He said this, "Is protecting working families and cutting childhood poverty an entitlement?" In other words, he's saying, hey, Joe Manchin, you keep saying we're creating entitlement programs, but is protecting working families and cutting childhood poverty an entitlement? Let's roll the tape and hear what Bernie Sanders had to say. These are some pretty strong comments. Let's watch.
Now, Senator Manchin, as I understand it, talked about today about not wanting to see our country become an entitlement society. Well, I am not exactly sure what he means by that. Does that mean that we end the $300 direct payments for working class parents, which have cut childhood poverty in this country as a result of the American Rescue Plan in half? Is protecting working families and cutting childhood poverty an entitlement? Does Senator Manchin think we should once again have one of the highest levels of childhood poverty of any major country on earth?
And folks, it looks like Joe Manchin was not going to stay silent in response to Bernie Sanders. Here's a tweet from Burgess Everett, who's the political co-congressional bureau chief. Manchin fires back at Bernie Sanders after Bernie Sanders' press conference. Respectfully, Senator Sanders and I share very different policy and political beliefs. Senator Sanders believes America should be moving towards an entitlement society, while I believe we should have a compassionate and rewarding society. Wow. How is that for firing back, folks? Let me know what you think. And here's a tweet from Sahil Kapoor, who's a national political reporter for NBC News. Bernie Sanders calls on Joe Manchin to explain what he means by an entitlement society. He asks if the West Virginia senator views Medicare vision, dental, hearing, child tax credit, universal pre-K, housing, 2 years community college, climate action, or other policies as entitlements. Wow, folks, these are some pretty strong comments from the one and only Bernie Sanders. Let me know whether you agree with Bernie Sanders or whether you agree with Joe Manchin, because one thing is for sure, they are all at odds with each other. In fact, let me fill you in on what Joe Manchin's been saying. He actually convened a press conference for about 10 minutes, and this is what Joe Manchin said on reconciliation. My number has been 1.5 trillion. I've been very clear. On the debt ceiling, he wants a majority leader Chuck Schumer and minority leader Mitch McConnell to negotiate. And he says, we will not default. Okay, I guess that sounds good. And, there'll be sunshine and rainbows every single day and we'll all sing Kumbaya. It's not as simple as that, Joe. You've got to come together with the Democrats so that the Democrats can be united in trying to help those who need it the most. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Budget Committee Chairman, Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont, is pretty upset and he's ready to talk about Joe Manchin. He said this, I quote, "The time is long overdue for him to tell us with specificity what he wants and what he does not want, and to explain that to the people of West Virginia and America." He also said this. He said he's not here to disparage Manchin. He knows that he'll eventually need Manchin's vote. But he did allude to the fact that Manchin and Kristen Sinema, and he said that they were two people who did not have the right to sabotage the party's spending bill. He said it's not good enough to be vague. So you can start to see this face-off, if you will, between Bernie Sanders on one hand and, of course, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York on one hand, and on the other hand, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, and Senator Kristen Sinema from Arizona. Let me know which side you're on, who you agree with. Do you agree with Bernie Sanders and everything he's been saying, or do you agree with Joe Manchin and his comments? I got to tell you, I knew Joe Manchin would be a thorn in the Democrats' side right after the elections. And if you go back to some of the video episodes on our channel, you'll see me pointing to Joe Manchin as a key figure in the entire agenda for the Democrats during the entire Biden presidency. And that is exactly what is happening right now. Please click the like button. Please click subscribe. Please enable notifications. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. This right here is a little bit of information about me. Check out my video. You'll learn more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. I work hard on this channel every single day to bring you the latest news and to bring you the truth wherever the truth might lead us. Thank you so much. Please also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is ignition_time. That's ignition_time. This right here is my Twitter feed. I'm fortunate to have a phenomenal video production team of Joseph and Jeanette. Reward us by clicking the like button, by clicking subscribe, and by enabling notifications. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.